As I said before, thank you guys so much for coming to our Ask workshop tonight. Application ready. Um, I am going to be recording so that we can post this online and people can refer back to it. So I'll just ask everybody uh, attending if you can keep your microphone muted and you can keep your camera on or off, whatever's comfortable for you. And then if you need to take a break or anything, like I said, we'll be recording. So if you miss anything, you can always come back and watch again. Um, but yeah, tonight we're going to talk about applications, and tips and tricks to help you along the way when you're applying for artist opportunities. Specifically, I wanted to talk about artist statements, artwork images, project proposals, resumes, cover letters. And one of the reasons we wanted to have this workshop tonight was because OVAC currently has three opportunities available for artists for our Momentum exhibition. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about that. Because Momentum is one of our exhibitions where we're getting a lot of young artists applying, people that are showing with us for the first time, or maybe applying for a show for the first time. So we wanted to share some information and resources to help people prepare to submit an application. Um, so First of all, a little bit about OVAC. We're the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. We were founded in 1988, and our mission is to grow and develop Oklahoma's visual arts community through education, promotion, connection, and funding. Um, yeah, we are based in Oklahoma City. Our office is here, but we offer opportunities to artists all across the state of Oklahoma, like exhibitions, grants, and professional development opportunities like workshops like this. Um, so we're excited to have you here and to learn more about our organization and applying for all kinds of artist opportunities. So my name is Ariana. I work at OVAC. I've worked here since 2021. I'm the administrative and artist relations manager. So I manage the grant programs. We have two that we offer for artists, and I also just handle a lot of the artist communication. So if you ever are applying to something or in a show with us, you'll probably be in contact with me at some point. Um, I am originally from Oklahoma City. I have a BFA from the University of Oklahoma, and I'm also an artist. I'm a printmaker. So I have experience on both sides of being on the artist side and being on the organization side. So I really like being able to help people answer questions and figure out, what to do in their artistic practice. And then I also put my email in case anybody has questions. You can always feel free to email me about anything. And then also joining me tonight for the presentation is Narciso Arguelles. He's going to be our guest curator for Momentum. Our next Momentum exhibition is going to be in the spring of next year. And like I said, applications are already open, so we're already working on everything. And a little bit about Narciso. You grew up in Tijuana, Mexico, and he has an MFA from the University California, Irvine. He's done different curatorial projects in Oklahoma and exhibited in all different kinds of places like Australia, South Africa, Los Angeles, New York City, and Oklahoma City. So we're also really excited to have him on the call tonight so that you can get the curator perspective too, since usually it's like curators that are reviewing all of the applications. So he'll also be helping me out, maybe throw in some tips along the way. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have hopefully like 15 minutes or so, so you guys can ask questions, especially to Narciso to get his perspective. Um, and yeah, I think next, um, I'll talk a little bit about what Momentum is and the opportunities that we have coming up, and then we'll get into talking specifically about different components of applications. So Momentum is one of the exhibitions we do at OVAC. It is designed to highlight young artists in Oklahoma. under the age of 30, really the like 18 to 30-year-old range. And it's the first time a lot of people show their work or apply to show their work in a big show like this. And so I think it's great that we can highlight young people and you don't have to have the fear, of competing against people of all different kinds of ages and maybe they have like 30 years of experience over you. You're all kind of it's showcasing young artists that are all kind of like in the similar age demographic. But that doesn't mean that it's not competitive and that there's not a lot of strong artists in the show. Every year it's always really great. It's a really fun exhibition. This year or the next upcoming one in 2025 is going to be April 4th and 5th at the Yale Theater in Oklahoma City. That's the venue. And then these are the opportunities we have open right now. So we have general survey artists. This makes up the bulk of the show. Artists can submit up to 3 artworks, and then our curators will look through and decide, which artists get into the show and which artworks are selected. We also have spotlight artists. Every year we select 3 spotlight artists, and they create new work, a new project that they work on for about like 3 or 4 months, and then it's displayed at the exhibition in April. And they all 3 of them also get $1,000 stipend for their work and to create the new work that they're making. And then we also have emerging curator. So this one is a little bit different. Um, you're not submitting artwork, but it's the opportunity to get some curatorial experience. So Narciso will work with an emerging curator that maybe has a little bit of curatorial experience, or maybe they're just an artist that's looking to learn more about curatorial work. And they also receive a stipend for the work that they do with Narciso and like looking over all the applications and planning stuff for the exhibition. So those are just some opportunities that we have coming up. And this is the eligibility for applying for Momentum. We're the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition, so we want to highlight visual artists. But that can really come in all different kinds of shapes, photography, painting, drawing, printmaking, sculpture, ceramics. We have video art sometimes, even performance art. So as long as it falls in the visual arts category, definitely apply. Again, we also want to highlight artists living in Oklahoma. Um, so it can be a little bit tricky. A lot of artists that apply for Momentum are kind of like college age. So, if you have a permanent address in Oklahoma, like you're from Oklahoma, your parents live here, but sometimes you spend time outside of the state going to school, but this is kind of like your permanent home, we can still accept that. Or if you're from out of state, but you live in Oklahoma the majority of the year because you go to school here, we'd still love to have you apply. If you have questions about it, you can feel free to contact me. I think it's really once, you're not in school anymore, you're permanently living in a different place, um, then you might not be eligible. Um, and yeah, serving Oklahoma artists is just really our focus, and we don't really have the capacity to expand it beyond that right now. So that's just a little info about that. And then, yeah, we serve artists for this show ages 18 to 30. So we're not showcasing artwork from like really young children. It's like young adult artists are the focus for the show. And we also ask that you become an OBAC member. So the cost to do that is $25 for students if you're like in college, or $45 for our standard individual membership. And that covers the whole year. And then you don't have to pay an application fee um, for, specifically applying for Momentum. The membership covers your application for any of the opportunities that we offer throughout the whole year. Um, so it's just a one-time flat fee for the year. And then, yeah, you're not eligible if you're outside this age demographic, if you live outside of Oklahoma permanently. if you have previously been a spotlight artist or previously been an emerging curator, um, you can't be an emerging curator multiple times or a spotlight artist multiple times. So those are a little bit of the restrictions, but there's not too many. And moving on, um, these are the different application materials that I'm going to talk about tonight. We ask for all of these in the different applications, the 3 different applications we have open right now, but they're also just super common for basically any kind of artist application that you're going to be filling out, submitting images of your artwork, an image list, which I'll talk about, artist statement, project proposal, resume. Cover letter is the only one that is kind of rare, but uh, still common in lots of different kinds of applications. And so you can see what each application will be asking for. Emerging Curator doesn't ask for very many in the application just because they're not submitting artwork. They're just kind of showing their qualifications. And the Spotlight Artist asks for the most because we're asking to see images of your artwork as well as hear about what kind of project you'd like to propose to show at Momentum. Um, yeah, so I think with that, we'll actually get into the different components of applications. So the first one I was going to talk about was artist statements. These are extremely common in basically every single kind of application that you'll fill out. It's a short written statement, usually like a paragraph, maybe like 100 to 200 words. For all of our applications at OVAC, we accept all of them through Submittable, which is a really nice platform. Um, it's like an online platform, submittable.com. You create an account and then you can look at different applications, submit your information, and it's really nice because you can see all the details in the form, input information as you have it ready, and save it and come back to it later. Because sometimes applications can be long and you'll need to gather a lot of information. So that's what we use, and whatever vehicle you're submitting your information through, always check if there's a word count, because usually for an artist statement, there will be some kind of word count. Maybe, they'll say up to 200 or 250 words, and you'll know how much information to provide. But different things that people usually talk about in their artist statement, it's generally providing context for your work. So you can talk about the materials that you use, the media. So if you're a painter, sculptor, photographer, and also your process. Because for every different kind of medium, there will always be different kinds of processes. So like I'm a printmaker, but that's kind of general. And then you can also talk about your specific process. Like in printmaking, there's wood cuts, screen printing, lino cuts, lithography, all kinds of different things. So talk about your specific process and how you make your art. Also talk about themes that you talk about in your work. It might be cultural things. It could be aesthetics, or I don't know. There's all kinds of different themes that people are portraying in their work. And you can also talk about influences, which kind of relates to that. Like, are there artists that inspire you, or specific movements in art history that inspire you? Like impressionism, abstract art, like these are all different things that you can talk about in your statement that provide information that people might want to know whenever they're looking at your art. So it's just a nice, paragraph that accompanies your artwork whenever people are looking at the images so they can have more information. Um, and it will change over time because, like I said, sometimes you'll have to submit a short one. Sometimes people will give you more room to submit a longer one. Over time, you might start using different kinds of materials or creating different kinds of artworks, exploring different themes. So it will change. And I would recommend like saving the drafts of them so you can reuse them and like have uh, things to work with, and you're not starting from scratch every single time that you're writing an artist statement. Um, and also a helpful tip, usually they're written in first person, so you're talking from like your own perspective and using I statements like I am a printmaker that uses woodcuts to investigate these themes in my art, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and one tip I also share with people is if there's like a famous artist out there or an artist in your community that you know that maybe they're a little bit further along in their artistic practice than you, um, look up their website and see if they have an artist statement on their website. Because you can look up all kinds of examples online, but sometimes it's helpful to look up an artist statement from an artist that you're familiar with their work or you know them, and you can kind of see how other people are talking about their work. Um, Sometimes they're very uh, more creative, but I think for a first artist statement, when you're first starting out, just try that like first person and talk about these basic things. Sometimes it's hard to start writing an artist statement, but with practice, it gets better over time. Um, And also I'd recommend looking at uh gistinc.com. They have like a manual with all kinds of information, but they also just have free resources on their website, including tips about writing an artist statement. And I think I first learned about that whenever I was in college. Somebody recommended it. So if you want more resources on that, you can check them out.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah.
I know I'm a instructor, and sometimes I give a little few tips on materials like this, and we have assignments that we assign things like this.
Mhm.
Um, and my recommendation is uh, sometimes you put in like filler, uh, and it's not really helpful. Um, Especially when it's you should be able to like I don't know if you guys ever did this like elevator speech. Like if you don't know what I mean, it's when, let's say you're getting an elevator and you meet like somebody really influential in the art world or somebody that could help your career, and you only have a minute or two with them as you're riding in the elevator. So what would you tell that person? Uh, So that will help you kind of be succinct and just be straightforward. Um, and let your passion, I guess, be evident in your writing. That's just my little 2 cents.
Yeah, that's really good. Because, yeah, like I was saying, it provides people context for your work if they've never seen it before. So, really think about what exactly people need to know about your work that you want them to know. Um, and yeah, from Narciso's perspective, he's saying kind of better to be just succinct and not try to fill it, you know, this word count with information that maybe isn't useful. And yeah, again, write something and you can also like revise it over time and make it more succinct as you go along. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was artwork images. These are examples of my artwork, and things you really want to pay attention to whenever you're taking images of your work. Obviously, they're one of the most important parts of an application for visual artists. So make sure you have good lighting, and usually crop the image as much as you can. So for my works, these examples are on paper, so they're really easy to crop. I have a little bit of the border around it. It's just the paper that the piece is on. If you have works on like canvas, those are really easy to crop. You can usually, if they're square, you can crop right up to where, the canvas is. You don't really need to show the background. If you have like a circular canvas or like a sculpture, um, it's really beneficial to try to just find as blank and neutral of a background as you can, like maybe like a white table, white background, or just something that's like solid color. Sometimes people take images of their like ceramics, they'll like put them in the grass and take pictures outside. And sometimes it's a little bit distracting. And sometimes the photos are really nice. But you really want your work to be the center and most important part of the image. So kind of cropping out all of the background is usually the best advice for that. Um, and yeah, use good lighting. Usually, like natural lighting is pretty nice. Um, uh, and you can also just use like a phone camera if you don't have a digital camera. I took these with my phone camera. Um, and usually for the applications that I submit, I just use images taken from my phone camera, and they can be pretty nice as long as you have good lighting. Um, so yeah, just make sure they're cropped nice, they're nice and straight, and not crooked. They're in focus. Sometimes I like to take my stuff like onto my porch where it's like natural lighting. It's covered so it's not super direct. Um, because sometimes super direct, like indoor lighting or super harsh, like sunlight can also be like hard. Uh, but you just want, especially if you have like colorful artwork, it to just be a true representation of what your piece is. So I also usually encourage people not to like edit their pictures a lot, just like very minimally. I just like crop mine, make sure it's like straightened out, maybe like adjust the brightness like a tiny bit. Minimal editing. You just want it to look exactly like how your piece really looks in real life. Um, and yeah, I would also recommend if you have a lot of finished pieces, you're like taking pictures of them, store them in some way, whatever works best for you. If it's on your computer, in a folder on like Google Drive, or maybe you have an album in your phone or something. Because I feel like some of my tips will just be to help artists, help you guys with the ease of applying to things. And organization is something that will really help you be like efficient and not wasting your time. So save the images. If you get a good one that you're like, oh, this is perfect, save it for later so you can just keep reusing them. You can use it on your social media, on your website, all different applications. So that way, whenever you're submitting applications, you're not having to like re-photograph all this stuff all over again. You already like have it ready. Also additional resources. We have a photo studio program that we do at OVAC every couple of months. We just have artists drop off their artwork to us. They pay a fee. If you're a member with us, you get a discount. And then a photographer will take images of your art, and then you can come pick it up the next couple days. And it's a really great benefit and a good deal if you need help taking pictures of your artwork. And also if you're in Oklahoma City, the Paseo Arts and Creativity Center has some good resources. Um, they have their own kind of photo studio where they like supply equipment. They don't have a photographer, but you can go take your artwork there and use their equipment for a fee. So they have like lights and a camera, I believe, and like photo backdrops and stuff. So that's also really nice if you can't or don't want to buy a bunch of like camera equipment and stuff. Um, there's different places that you can look up to get some resources and help with that. Because yeah, artwork samples are really important. So really take your time and make sure you get some good images for that. Do you have any other tips to add, Narciso?
I do. Uh, if you have access um, to a scanner, sometimes when it's flat work and it's small, and you don't want to mess around with setting up the right lighting, indoor, outdoors, 45-degree angles, whatever. Just put it on a flatbed scanner, scan it, and high res. You can always do different resolutions for different purposes for social media, for applications, for your personal website. Um, and a lot of libraries, school libraries, have these materials for free. So, like I said, it has to be like a small flat piece of work that you can put in a flatbed scanner. Uh, and For my students, especially for when I'm teaching AP art, we use the flatbed scanner. It's just even lighting, uh, really quick, no hassle. And I was going to mention also like I didn't see it on the list right away, but that OVAC photo studio is pretty cool. If you guys haven't ever taken advantage of that, I suggest you do that. If you're really savvy with social media, there's plenty of photographers that sometimes work for free and they have the lighting set up and just go ahead and shoot for like maybe 30 minutes for your work. You would have to reach out to them. There's plenty in Oklahoma City. And like I said, sometimes if you get like a student or something, um, they'll work with you for free or very minimal expenses, and they have a higher resolution camera that they can work with. But there's just some tips.
Yeah, those are really good. I didn't mention the scanner, and that's a really good idea. Because yeah, for like drawings or small paintings or something, a scanner is really good. And yeah, like you said, the public libraries in Oklahoma City definitely have scanners that you can use. So if you have something small, that can work. Um, and there's also if there's like print shops, like where you'd go somewhere to maybe like print a big sign or something. They usually have scanners too. Um, so yeah, those are good tidbits and tips and tricks. And yeah, there's also always like photographers that you can hire if you're wanting to maybe like document a lot or put some investment into documenting your work. Um, yeah, finding a photographer can definitely help too if you don't want to go the DIY route, because sometimes it can take a lot of time. And then to go along with the images are the image list. So this will kind of be collected in usually like one of two ways. Sometimes in our applications, we'll just have you type this information directly into the online form, or they'll have you submit this information in like a document, a Word document, or a PDF or something. I usually prefer PDFs because when you submit it, the formatting will stay completely the same. Whereas sometimes if you send something in a Word document, sometimes the formatting can get messed up. But usually image lists are really simple. Um, and, it's just a white document, black text, easy to read. So the materials that you'll need for every piece are usually the title, the medium, the dimensions, the year, and price. And then you want to make sure that these correspond to the artwork images that you're including. So this is an example. If you submit an image, then make sure you title the digital file to correspond with your image list. So I would submit my first image, make sure that the file name is also check the application that you're applying to. Sometimes they'll want you to title the file's first name, last name, number one, two, three, whatever, or last name, comma, first name, or just last name. So this is an example of like mine that I would do. If it's just last name, Weir Temashak 1, and then whatever the first image is, I'll put the title, medium, dimensions, year, and price. Um, so that's just information that you will need to have for basically every piece of artwork that you have. Um, and again, I usually recommend keeping a list of this somehow. because again, like with photographing your art, whenever you're submitting to an application, an opportunity, um, you don't, if you're like submitting like 5 or 10 pieces or something, you don't want to be running around like trying to remember what the title is or what the dimensions are and running around and measuring every piece. I like spreadsheets, so I just have it in a spreadsheet. You can put like a little thumbnail and then put the title, medium, dimensions, price, or whatever for every piece, or just whatever works for you. But again, it's just a way to keep yourself organized and make sure you have all the information and you're not running around scrambling every time you're submitting to different applications. Um, and trying to look at my notes and make sure I'm hitting all my points. I think that was mostly what I was going to say, but I also wanted to ask Narciso your opinion for dimensions, because I create a lot of art in on paper that ends up being framed. And so, from my perspective, working at an organization, I assume that usually what people want is the finished dimensions. So, if you have a canvas, that's 18 by 24, it will stay the same size. If you have a piece on paper, like a print or a drawing or a photograph, I would assume the intention is submit the dimensions of whatever the final piece will be. If it's framed, submit the dimensions of what it will be when it's framed. Because really, what people are wanting is to know how big everything is. Because for every show and exhibition, there will be some kind of space limitation. Um, so you don't want to, say, oh, my photograph is only 8 by 10, but then when you frame it, it's like double the size.
That's
So
a good
that's
point.
something that I think about, and I wanted to hear your opinion about that.
I've hung a lot of exhibits. I used to work at the San Diego Museum of Art, and my job was working with the preparator to hang exhibitions. And yeah, then when I started doing like smaller exhibits, curating them, and oftentimes I would hang the exhibit. And yes, you want to, in my opinion, you want the measurement of the work, that the outside measurement of it framed. It um, you don't want any kind of surprises when when you get the work and you go, wow, this is a little bit different, which has happened. I was expecting something smaller, and then I had to shift gears. And for for exhibition purposes, you always want to. And I think you mentioned this later, the hanging wire in the back. Different spaces have different hanging methods. So you don't want to be, the person hanging the show and there's no wire. They have like this little uh, hook at the back that's
Yeah,
holding like this
sawtooth.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go, oh man, what kind of nail am I going to do? Is it going to be safe? Is it going to fall off? It's going to break the glass or something. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, you want to be mindful of uh, how it should hang. And like again, this is just added advice for future art exhibits. You don't want to go too you don't have to have that like a gigantic budget for framing, but you want it to look nice because sometimes putting it under glass, uh, the work automatically looks like $1 million. So you want to make sure it's you don't go chintzy on the on on that part of putting your exhibit together. You don't have to get all custom with it, but you want it to be nice and decent. So sometimes that's the selling point. Oh, it's already framed, ready to go. I can just picture it in the living room. And to your point about the spreadsheet, if you're really like into data, when you sell the work, you can include the person who bought your piece in your spreadsheet. So you can save that information in case you have a show coming up. You have the name, you have the contact information. They already bought one of your pieces, so they're already a fan. So let them know, um, hey, I have another exhibit coming up, um, and so you can be tailor marketed to those people. And and I know it's hard to be an artist. You have to be, you know, so many things. The guy in charge of the budget, the sometimes you're hanging your own work. You're also the artist, you're the promoter, you're the guy marketing, graphic design, a website, social media marketing. There's a lot of things you have to juggle. But if you're that kind of person, I encourage you to. Uh, it will save so much time later when you're trying to put something together if you collect this data and you're organized.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, like collecting the information of like who bought your piece, what the piece sold for is all good to know because then that can also help you um make decisions about what your artwork will be priced in the future, like having this track record of selling pieces and having that information. Um, so yeah, these are all really good points. And for the framing, yeah, you don't have to spend a ton on getting a custom made frame or anything. But at the end of the day, especially for pieces on paper, the frames are made to protect your piece. So you don't want to be like super cheap. Sometimes, you'll pick up a frame and it's like wiggly and jiggly, and you really don't want that. You want it to protect your piece, and not fall apart. So somewhere in the middle ground is usually pretty good. Um, yeah, so we'll go on to the next component, which is the project proposal. So I just made a couple points about this. Usually in a project proposal, um, you want to be more specific, whereas like the artist statement is kind of just general, like these are generally the themes I talk about in my work. I generally use these different kinds of materials, things like that. These are kind of my influences and inspiration and a little bit of context of why I make this artwork. Whereas the project proposal will be more specific and you'll explain exactly what you're going to do for this specific project. Um, so yeah, it's like, what are you going to make? Also, like, how many pieces are you going to make? For like this application for our Momentum Spotlight that asks for a project proposal, these are things that we'll want to know also due to, spatial limitations, installation needs. There's things like that organizations will need to know to make sure that we can accommodate whatever project you're proposing. And also you just want to be specific so that every person that's reading your application can really envision what you're planning. So, what are the materials you're going to use? How many pieces are you going to make? Also, what the pieces will look like. What will you be depicting? I feel like I've read different kinds of descriptions and proposals working here where people will describe, these are the themes and I'm going to make these paintings and I want people to feel like this when they look at my work, but they don't ever actually say what they will be depicting. Like, are you going to paint a butterfly? Are you going to paint a still life? Um, those are very like basic examples, but you get the picture. Like, you want to actually tell people what exactly you're making and be specific. And how will the project be displayed? So will it hang on a wall? Are you making sculptures that'll stand on the floor? Is it going to be interactive, some kind of installation? Um, and what's the inspiration and context? Like what has inspired you to make the work? Is it involving some kind of current events or something that's happening in the world that you're responding to? Just different things to think about when you're writing your proposal. Because I feel like, especially the inspiration and context can really make your proposal stand out, that there's some kind of like real world connection and um, something that like audiences will really be engaged with and why. Um, but I also wanted to pass it over to Narciso to hear his input too about what you kind of look for in project proposals.
Well, I might be different than than other people. I think it's because of my educational like background. 'Cause I've been a teacher for so long, and read papers and also proposals for art. If I'm teaching a college class, the proposals for their final or their body of work that they're working on. But like Ariana was saying, I want to know what it's going to look like. Um, and the example that this is just my personal taste. I like it in bullet points, and very like straightforward. Like it might say something like size, and it will say installation, and then I'll give the dimensions of the proposal. Um, like Ariana was saying, if your work needs to have power, if it's like a an audio component or lighting component, that needs to be like stated so we understand. Oh, okay. If we, can this work be in this space? Need some sort of power source. Um, so that's thinking about those kind of considerations. Um, but the way Ariana has it listed like this, I would just copy this and answer those questions. Sometimes when I see proposals and they ask for things like this, I just copy paste and then I answer the question as simply as possible. So it's clear. So it's clear. Um, and don't assume um, that the person reading it um, will know like an artist name uh, or a certain like theme that you're talking about. You might want to elaborate a little bit about that. Um, and yeah, you can details are always good. Uh, I would avoid um, sounding like you don't know what you're doing, or you're just speaking in general terms, like Ariana was saying. Um, then it sounds like they're just throwing something out there. Um, but yeah, be as specific. Try to picture. Maybe it's because I used to hang a lot of exhibits. Picture what kind of considerations. Like picture yourself as the guy hanging the show. Like, okay, like what is this going to look like? What do I need? And kind of describe it that way.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like those are good things to take into consideration because, yeah, it's like not only what is the artwork going to look like, what are the materials, but also how it will be displayed and like logistical considerations, and like the inspiration and context too. And I think I like the point of like not making the assumption that the people reading your application will like know, I don't know, anything about you, or yeah, if you're saying you're inspired by specific things or artists or movements or anything. Yeah, I feel like that's always good advice for submitting any application is just assuming the people reading it don't know you at all, don't know your artwork at all, basically don't know anything, and you're trying to communicate as straightforward as you can, everything that they need to know. Because you never want to make any assumptions, even though it's hard to know exactly what the person reading the application will know. You don't want to make any assumptions just because you don't want to leave out any important information that somebody will really need to know. Um,
And that leads me to another really quick like suggestion.
yeah.
Whenever there's like space where they're asking you something, you don't want to like go off the rail, but you could include an extra sentence or two about who you are. And you kind of sneak in something like uh, doing large scale installations in Los Angeles and Chicago. I'm really well versed in putting on these exhibits. So you sneak in some resume stuff in the proposal. That way you go, okay, I gotta go check out that resume a little bit deeper. What is this person talking about? But if you just sneak it in there, it's like, oh, this guy is like experienced and he's done this before or she's done this before. You can always sneak in just a little bit in there. You don't have to go off the rails, but something that'll just make it click for people.
And like show, yeah, that you have experience and that you can really do this project. Because that leads us into the next point, which is resumes and CVs. Because that's what people are looking for when they're reading applications is I feel like when you're submitting to just a standard show, it's different. I feel like really just looking at your work, like is your work strong? Does it fit the theme of the show or whatever? But whenever you're submitting for like a grant or a specific project proposal or something, they're not just looking at the quality of your work. They're also looking at your track record of making art and what you've done in the past to see, if I invite this artist to do this project, will they actually be able to do it? Or have they never done anything like this at all before? And I'm not sure how experienced they are or how much I'm able to trust that they'll be able to accomplish this. Um, which also depends on the size of the opportunity that you're applying for. Like for the Momentum Spotlight, it's a smaller scale than some other opportunities where your experience and track record will really matter a lot. So it kind of just depends on the application that you're applying for. But yeah, quick tips on resumes and CVs. This will be different than like your normal resume, professional resume that you probably submit for like other jobs. Whenever you submit a resume or CV for an art application, it's specifically for your art career and your art practice. Um, so it'll be formatted very similar to normal resumes. It'll just have different categories, and you're just going to talk about your art experience. So you won't list your like 9 to 5 job experience of like, uh, I'm not going to list when I used to work at Domino's on my artist resume. It's just like not pertinent. And sometimes people make this mistake and it's, you know, very understandable. When you hear resume, you probably just think of like your normal resume that you submit for all kinds of jobs. But we really want to know about your artistic experience. So usually on, resumes, you'll have like an education section, a job history section, maybe like volunteering or credentials or something. And these are the kinds of categories that people usually have on like art resumes. So you can still have an education section if you went to college or school for art, you can list that there. Or if you've taken workshops or some kind of technical training, you can list that there. Um, Exhibitions are a big one that you'll list on your resume, which will just basically be a list of, um, you don't have to do all of the shows that you've ever been in. When you're starting out, you probably will list all the shows you've ever been in. If you've only been in 5, you will probably just list all of them. But as you get further along in your career and you've been in like 50 exhibitions, you're not going to have space to list all of them. But usually you'll list, the title of the exhibition, where it was, and like the year. You can list if it was like a solo exhibition or a group exhibition or different things like that. You can list if you've been featured in publications, or if you're a curator, maybe if you like write things that have been published, if you've won awards, like a Curator's Choice Award or Best in Show, or won an award maybe at your university for your work, or different kinds of things like that, like a merit scholarship or something. If you've done public artworks, and this will also change over time. And I know I've already said it before, but again, keep a list of all of the things that you've been in, because then when you are making your resume or CV or you're updating it, you'll have all of this stuff. And this is the resume and CV is also a very common thing that you'll have to submit for artist applications. So I also keep a spreadsheet of all of the different opportunities that I've been in, like exhibitions and where they were and the date and the name and different publications your artwork is featured in and all different kinds of things. That way, again, it's all in one place, it's organized, and you can just copy and paste that stuff into your resume. Um, and it'll change over time, and it'll also kind of change depending on what kind of art you do. If you're like a painter and you mostly are featured in exhibitions, that will be a really big part of your resume. Um, if maybe you do like video and photography type stuff, maybe you have an exhibition section, but you also have like a screenings section where you feature different like film festivals that have screened your work. Or a curator, you might have a section that talks about curatorial projects that you've worked on. Um, so you can tailor this to your artistic practice and the kinds of things that you do, and also like look up. Again, this is a good one to look at artist websites and see how they format theirs, and look up examples online of people to get inspiration.
I
Um,
was just going to mention that. The I learned this from a teacher friend of mine, because students, usually when they meet their instructor, um, the students usually, but sometimes the parents, they will Google you, to see who you are, and you can get a one of those free websites, generators, and you can put your CV on there. So that way, it's always, even if they're even if you're not applying for anything, and somebody sees your name or knows about you, or somebody mentions you, they'll Google you, and then there's your CV, and you can have hyperlinks to any articles, any short films. If you're a musician, some links to your music, uh, and it's a nice way to kind of keep a history, and it's always there. Um, I also There was Jennifer. Her last name escapes me. She used to be a curator at Oklahoma Contemporary. Um,
there's Scanlon.
yes, and she was looking for an artist, not a specific person. Uh, well, maybe it was a specific person. Um, and she went on social media and started typing, but couldn't find them right away because they had this kind of weird handle. Like whatever social media, you might make some sort of funny little handle or name. So, and she actually posted about this. I don't remember if it was on Twitter or not, but it says something like, "Why can't artists just put their name in their social media so I can find their stuff really quickly?" And then she goes, it was just her rant. But you can have social media specifically for your art, and then you just put your art pieces there and links to the website. So another easy way if a curator is looking for somebody, um, you know, make it easy for them to find you.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. And we're running out of time. We only have like 5 or 10 minutes left. But I didn't even talk about websites in this. If you need a website, just look it up. I feel like Wix has like maybe like free websites that you can access. Or like Narciso said, you can make a portfolio of your work on like Instagram or something. If you can't afford to have a website, there's like affordable options out there. But you can compile a little bit of a portfolio on social media too. And this is the last point, which is just cover letters aren't super common in artist applications. We ask for it for our emerging curator application. For ours, in the cover letter, we ask for past experience, interest in the opportunity, and future aspirations. So you'll talk about, do you have past experiences that tie into this opportunity? So like for curatorial work, applying for a curatorial position, curatorial work includes so many different things like planning, research, writing, selecting artwork, maybe even handling or installing artwork. So maybe you don't have experience in all of those, but can you find, a couple places where you have a little bit of experience, talk about that in your cover letter, why you're interested in the opportunity and what you want to do in the future, and how this opportunity will help you. And of course, why you will be the best fit for this opportunity. And obviously, if you have experience in a certain field that you're applying for this opportunity, that will obviously help you stand out. But you can also use experience that you do have in an adjacent field and kind of talk about it in your cover letter, um, and help like tie in why you're interested in the opportunity and what you want to learn. And then these will be tailored to each specific like opportunity that you're applying for. So this will kind of be something you'll have to write specifically for whatever application. Um, so just breezing through that. But I think that's it. And we can have a little bit of time for questions. So if anyone has any questions, you can come unmute yourself or drop your questions in the chat. Um, and yeah, we'd love to talk with y'all.
Don't be shy.
I might stop sharing real quick just to make sure there's no things in the chat that I can't see.
I think you did such a good job that there's no questions.
I hope so. So, okay. I don't see anything in the chat, but I will share my contact information one more time. Um, so yeah, I'm a full-time staff member at OVAC, so just email me any kind of questions you have. That's my job is to like help people. Um, and specifically, if you're interested in applying for Momentum, you can visit our website and apply. And if you need to stop by our office and ask us a question in person, we're located in OKC. Um, but yeah. One last time, does anybody have any questions before we log off? Or Narciso, do you have any more advice that you want to offer?
Just something really quick. Sometimes people talk themselves out of applying for things, or they run out of time and they go, well, I couldn't quite get it together. Maybe next time around. Even if you know you might not be ready or the work might not be strong enough, whatever, do it anyway. You learn the process by going through the process. So even if you don't get selected, instead of just not submitting and then waiting next time when something else comes up, you gain experience and by just doing it. You go, okay, uh, I didn't get it this time, but I learned that I should get these images better photographed, better edited, beef up my resume. So you learn through this process. And sometimes people will ask for feedback, like, "Hey, I didn't get this thing. Is there anybody that can give me a little feedback how I can improve?" And if I remember correctly, OVAC does this sometimes. They'll give feedback on, "Oh yeah, though, this is what the issue was." And yes, just don't be shy. Don't be don't let fear like block you. um, walk down any kind of area that has galleries and look in there. And sometimes these places are filled with confident people, and you look at them and goes, "Man, my work is better than that person." And you're just lacking the confidence. So just go for it, even if it doesn't if it doesn't you know you don't get selected, and think of it like an investment. Uh, when I first moved to Oklahoma and I found out about OVAC, I immediately became a member, uh, just so. I'm going to apply for a bunch of this stuff. It pays for itself. And OVAC has always been very good to me. Um, Opened up a lot of opportunities. I've always thought that they were especially kind to people of color, and speaking specifically for the Latino community. Always a friend of the Latino community, and I've certainly felt supported. So yeah, just go for it.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, I really agree. And yeah, taking the time to apply for opportunities, it takes time, but like with anything, it gets easier every time you apply and you get better at it. And especially for like our Momentum exhibition, and this goes for all different kinds of opportunities that you'll be applying for. For Momentum, we have a different curator every year, basically. So every curator is looking for something different. They have different interests, things that they're looking for. Maybe they want to highlight, certain kinds of art, certain kinds of people, certain kinds of stories. Um, so yeah, don't get like discouraged if you have to apply to lots of different opportunities or sometimes you don't get it. Because sometimes it's not even about necessarily the quality of your work. It might just be, this gallery or this show where this curator was like looking for something specific. Um, and that changes all the time and changes from curator to curator too. And yeah, like Narciso said, I'm always happy to answer questions for our grant programs. If you do submit an application, um, I can like read through the application beforehand, provide you some edits. I can provide you feedback afterwards. Same thing for basically like any of our applications. Like I'm happy to read through things, answer questions when you're applying. Um, the deadlines for Momentum things, mostly the emerging curator and spotlight artists are coming up really quickly. So if you have questions, send them to me ASAP because it's always better to ask ahead of time than like the day that the application is closing. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So thank you so much, Narciso, for being here. Um, and thank you all for attending. Maya says, thanks a lot. Appreciate all the information and tips. I'm glad that it was helpful.
Give her
Um,
a hand, guys. Let's give her a hand. Come on.
thank
You did
you.
great.
Well, I hope all of you guys have a really great night, and I'm sure I'll see you all around soon.